speaking of that, of Eduflow Academy, let's talk about the program. But I'm going to assume if anyone follows you on LinkedIn, if they haven't done so already, be sure to follow William. I'm going to put the links down below in the show notes. But everything that you keep getting tagged on constantly is for this program that you have in Eduflow Academy called Instructional Design Principles for Course Creators. And I would love to unpack that because that has grown so much. And it's just absolutely crazy to see where things have gotten nowadays after the 9th cohort. Is that what just wrapped up soon? 9th? Yeah. So
9th cohort was finishing up this week.
Yeah.
Next week. So that's wild.
That's insane. That's absolutely crazy. So I'd love to know about where did this idea come from in the first place to be able to do this, to bring all these people together? Tell me more about the background story for this.
Yeah. So I think the origin story is that Eduflow Academy had a few courses before I arrived, and they were self-paced courses, and they still are really good courses, but they weren't getting a lot of traction, even though they were really good. And I think my big theory about why they weren't doing so good is because when people learn online, there's this big craving for doing it with other people, and that was missing in what we were offering. And then David, who's the CEO of Eduflow, we were just having a lunchtime chat, and I said, well, why don't we turn this into a cohort-based course, which is a way of doing a course with a bunch of people together, over a few weeks, and then you all graduate at the same time or a similar time. And David was like, let's do it. And then he just gave me like all the freedom I could need and gave me a rough timeline, and then we just did it, which was amazing because it like meant that I was able to use whatever tools and strengths that I had at the time to put together this course. And then I spoke to a bunch of really awesome people and did a bunch of research, and then we put together the Instructional Design Principles course that really makes the most of Eduflow's features as well. So we started with a cohort of, I think, 50 people as a pilot cohort, and we asked people to apply to participate, and we still do that. And it's a really nice way to ensure that we get people who are really invested in the experience to participate, instead of just people who like, I'll just apply, kind of thinking this is kind of like a LinkedIn learning course or whatever. So for the first cohort, we picked 50 of who we thought would probably be the most critical people that we could find. So, they were academics and they were veteran instructional designers, and they went through the first cohort, and we got some really awesome feedback and some really nice testimonials from them about this experience. And then we were able to build on that. And then since then, we've had, we get around 700 to 1,200 applications per cohort. And then our cohort sizes range from 700 to 900 we've tried once. And then we are on our 10th cohort that's coming up. And another cool thing is that we've got 800 testimonials that people have written for the course. So every time someone finishes the course, we ask them, if you want to, can you write a testimonial? And we've got 800, and soon there'll be way over 800, which is, for me, absolutely mind-blowing that people will go out of their way to write something about their experience to promote it for us, which just makes me so happy. And I read through them when I'm sad, and it just makes my day.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Definitely reading a review about all the work that you put in and people enjoyed it. It's a pretty cool feeling. And I remember too the cohort that was like the super massive, humongous cohort, because when I did my webinar about backward design for that one, I think there was like 250 people on the Zoom call at once. And I was like, okay, it's like, this is different. I'm surprised all of you are here. And of course, the thing too that always blows my mind is that this is all learners from all different walks of life, all different countries, and of course, all different time zones. And whenever people come together, where you're going to have somebody who's joining in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for like one of the webinars that are live. I'm like, why? Like,
Yes.
thank you, but why? It's recorded. Like, it's okay. But to your point, though, that community aspect, people want to be on the calls together because of the breakout rooms, because of those sessions, because of all those things like that. So what made you actually wanted to make it into a cohort, though? Because there's all different ways about how you can establish community. So why cohort-based modeling?
I've been thinking about cohort-based learning for a while now, and I think it's really interesting that to some extent we go through cohort-based learning experiences, from the day we start school, or from the day that we, join the creche. Then you're in a cohort of creche mates, and then you go to grade one, and you're in the same grade with a bunch of people. So cohort-based learning is almost ingrained in the way we do things. And then when you leave, if you're fortunate enough to go to higher universities or whatever, if you leave to join the professional space, all of a sudden this cohort-based learning approach is a very, very rare luxury. So to some extent, we've almost been conditioned into learning in this way. And the reason why this format has survived this long is because it's so effective. There's built into it, there's the social connection that we crave. There's also the accountability. There's the presence that you feel when other people around you are also learning and they're also sharing their ideas. It's just got so many ingredients that make it successful. And if anyone's interested in learning more about cohort learning, Wes Cow, who is the founder of Maven, or co-founder of Maven, she's got some really awesome blog posts that I recommend reading if anyone wants to dig into the space of cohort-based learning.
I mean, I love cohort-based learning too because that was the model that my doctoral program used. And that was my first introduction to it because, as you mentioned, you go through it throughout your entire years of schooling and whatnot. But then that was when someone actually said the word cohort to me.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is your new family. Like, they're going to help you through with writing this dissertation. Like, you're not going to always have a professor to lean on or whoever, but you'll have a cohort. And I swear that is what has gotten so much of us through and actually finished the program, where for a lot of people, they get stuck in ABD limbo and they never finish, and then it's just like it's done. But that 100% helped. So did you have any experience beyond like going through high school and college and whatnot? Did you ever do anything with like you yourself were in a cohort as well too for a learning experience?
So apart from like, being in school and stuff, I used to work at a certain OPM that ran cohort-based courses for executives. And I worked there for 3 years, and I learned a lot about, putting them together and stuff. And a lot of the little tips and tricks and lessons I learned from that space, I was able to translate. And then all the guardrails were removed. I could really, really, take my own creative freedom in putting these together. And Eduflow as well is really, really, and I know I work for Eduflow, and it's terrible for me to promote Eduflow so blatantly, but it really makes it so much easier to just really put out or create whatever experience you want based on the idea that you have, so speed networking, or we've got an activity where you can plot your name on a world map so that other people can see it. And we just do that by integrating with Padlet, for example. But yeah, I'll stop shamelessly promoting Eduflow for a second.
No, I understand. Whenever MIT gives me like the academic freedom to go out and try like whatever, where I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, let's just do the research, do the pilot, figure it out, get feedback, and let's see if we can make it work. And that's been amazing to be able to have that. It's been a blessing to try things, and sometimes they crash burn and they do not go well, and other times they do. So,
but we also always learn something from something that fails.
Yes.
And I guess it depends on how you manage risk and what the risks are beforehand. But if something doesn't work, it just means we get a lot of emails where people who are confused or whatever, and it means that maybe we need to iterate, or maybe we need to take a step back and try something else. But it's always really valuable to just give it a go. It could turn into something very, very valuable for the participants.